Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining us today. About 10 months ago, I had the privilege of leading a congressional delegation to Afghanistan and Pakistan. When we were leaving that area of the world, we held a press conference, and during that press conference, one of the reporters on the call asked me, he said, what is our exit strategy in Afghanistan? And my response, I said, I think the exit strategy is the strategy that our new president at the time, President Obama, had just laid out. And that strategy included 10,000 Marines, 7,000 more Army soldiers, 4,000 trainers, about 150 Black Hawk helicopters. But a strategy that also acknowledged that if all we did was just send more troops over there, U.S. troops, and if all we did was just go out and try to kill the Taliban, we weren't likely to be in the end all that successful. The strategy that the president has laid out is not just a military surge with our troops and personnel. It's a surge that involves 42 other nations on the military side, but also on the civilian side. And it's a surge that involves trainers from our country, trainers for the Afghan National Army, the trainers to work with the Afghan National Police. And we have today about 1,000 civilians that are working as part of a civilian surge in Afghanistan. And I think what we're seeing almost a year later from when I left Afghanistan, about a year later, we're seeing a situation where we have an opportunity to evaluate whether the strategy is being implemented well, and I think it is. The key to implementing the strategy well is to have a terrific leadership, and we have that in General McChrystal. On the military side, we have it in Ambassador Eikenberry, former general, on the civilian side. We met with a number of folks in the leadership in Afghanistan on the Afghan side, President Karzai among others, and many of the ministers within his cabinet, a number of other folks that are part of the parliament. We met with folks in the media. We met with a lot of our troops. We flew around the southern part of Afghanistan for the better part of one day. We met with a lot of troops, including troops from all of our states, and had the opportunity to see, among other things, to see actually. Some of you remember the film Sleeping with the Enemy? We actually had an opportunity to see U.S. troops sleeping in the same compounds with Afghan National Army troops, with our allied troops, with the Afghan National Police. And what we've done is literally gone out, we don't have the U.S. off by themselves in some compound somewhere. I mean, we're very much integrated into this. And we eat with the Afghan National Army and sometimes the police. We eat with them, sleep in the same areas, train with them. Sometimes they lead operations, sometimes we lead operations, but it's very much an integrated role. The idea is to also put our people, our folks, not off in a compound someplace, but to put them literally among the people that we're there to protect. I was privileged to go with and let me see, we also spent a couple of days in Pakistan. The days that we spent in Pakistan, again, meeting with literally the top political leadership and the military leadership of that country. We're there at an exciting time when the Pakistanis were voting to amend their constitution, adopting the 18th Amendment to their constitution, which really restores democracy in that part of the world. We had the opportunity to travel to the western part of Afghanistan, western part of Pakistan, where it borders up against Afghanistan, and to see the kind of training that's going on and the work that's going on to flush the Pakistani Taliban out of that part of the country and to begin to bring people back to their homes, a couple of million people back to their homes. Is the situation over there in both countries challenging? Yes, it is. Is it hopeless? No, it is not. Is it hopeful? Yes, I think it is. And the key is leadership. We've got terrific leadership. We have a good game plan, and we're executing that game plan. I was just delighted that Senator John Ensign could go as our lead Republican colleague. John and I came to the Senate together in 2001, and we're joined by a new senator. What was your name? Scott. Joined by Scott Brown from Massachusetts. And for me, a new person who's I grew up in Virginia, was delighted to get to know Rob, and we're just delighted that you could come with us too. John?
Thank you. Let me give you a couple of the takeaways that I had from the trip. First of all, I was pretty skeptical going over there. I have a lot of confidence in General McChrystal and what he was able, along with General Petraeus and others, able to accomplish in Iraq. But Afghanistan is a much more challenging situation. I think we all recognize that. But I came away more hopeful from our trip. And that is because of actually being on the ground and seeing exactly what they're doing. I think that they have put together from the civilian side as well as the military side a plan that has the best chance of working. Having said that, I don't know whether it'll work, but it is certainly in our American interests that plan be carried out and given a best chance to work. Stability in the region is critical, I think, for our national security. And I think we need a great pat on the back and a shout out to our military personnel and our civilian personnel who are over there in very dangerous conditions. They are doing a fabulous job. A couple of the highlights of the trip, for me, not only was meeting a lot of our folks and especially folks from back in the state, but also meeting with some of the Afghans themselves and sitting down, talking with them, and hearing what their perspective is. And I think across the board, and this was whether it was in Afghanistan or in Pakistan, the key to defeating the Taliban is not the military. The military is a critical aspect of it, but the key is really winning the hearts and the minds of the Afghan people, and in Pakistan, the Pakistani people. And that's why the clear, the hold, build strategy is so critical, and then obviously the end of that is the transfer. The reason I said I don't know whether this strategy will work is simply because that last aspect. I think that we can clear, that we can build, or we can hold, and we can build. I have complete confidence in our ability, along with our allies, to be able to do that. The challenge is then, can we transfer that to the Afghanis? And it's because they have never, they just don't have any kind of infrastructure. Iraq at least had a functioning government. Even though it was a dictatorship, they had their ministries that were functioning. And that's the biggest challenge, I think, in Afghanistan. The other takeaway that I would have from it, this is one of the policies that I disagreed with. And I don't mean to sound negative, because I think the vast majority that they're doing is right. The only question mark that I would have is our policy on the poppies. We had an eradication policy going on, and seeing what was done down in Colombia and in other parts, I think that eradication needs to be part of the strategy. I believe in the incentives, but I also think it needs to come with, if you don't take the incentives, we need to put a warning out there to the farmers, we're going to eradicate the poppy fields. When we flew over the Kandahar province, the poppies were in bloom, and it was poppy field, poppy field, poppy field. Everywhere you went, there were poppies. They were in full bloom, and they were near our bases, our forward operating bases. It was blatant. They know that we aren't doing anything about that as far as any kind of penalties. But I think that we need to change our strategy there, and that's the one place I guess I would disagree with the strategy over there. But the rest of it, I would really compliment General McChrystal and Ambassador Eikenberry and the Obama administration for the job that they're doing in Afghanistan. Real quickly on Pakistan, once again, I came away much more encouraged about that country than when I went there. I think that their civilian and military leadership gives that country a lot of hope. And is important for the United States is they're recognizing what a threat the Taliban is to their country. And in the tribal areas, we don't hear a lot about it, but they have a major military operation going against the Taliban there, and they're forcing the Taliban back into Afghanistan, which allows us to trap them when they come back into Afghanistan. And so there's more cooperation happening there, and I, hopefully that the Pakistani people, through their governmental leaders, will recognize the good that the American people are doing also for the people in Pakistan. And lastly, on that country, it is critical, once again, for the United States and our national interest that Pakistan be a stable country and that it not fall into the hands of the Taliban. So it's in our national interest in both countries to make sure that there is stability in the region. And it was a pleasure being on the trip with these guys, and our staffs did a great job. But I especially want to pay tribute to Wendy on Tom Carper's staff. She did a great job with the trip.
Thank you very much. I want to first of all say I'm in an armed services hearing, so I'm going to just make my comments brief, and I'll stay for some questions. I'm going to head back, but I wanted to thank Senator Carper, a real leader. It was an honor to be on this team, and if these are what these are supposed to be like, then I'm looking forward to going on another one with you and with the team members, because we were really able to, I feel, get right to the heart of the matter and speak very directly and plainly to not only the world, the country leaders, but obviously the embassy staff and embassy leaders as well. And it gave me a true picture as to what's happening over there, something that I can come back and not only relay to my constituents in Massachusetts, but obviously in dealing with a lot of the votes that we're going to be taking and work them in an appropriate manner. I agree with the poppy issue, and I think it's something we really need to get a handle on. But the thing that I found most fascinating is the one thing that they're all talking about over there is jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. Every country, every person, every leader, whether it's from the top leader in each country all the way down to the regular pomegranate farmer, that want jobs. And it's the one thing that we're not talking about here in the United States, and I find very, very frustrating. I found it really fascinating. I think we all did, that there's so much emphasis, because what they felt is that once they get jobs, their economy will start moving. There'll be less people on the street wandering into Taliban control areas, and less of an opportunity to infiltrate the youth of their countries. And it can't be much different here. We need jobs here in not only in Massachusetts but throughout the country. And I'm hopeful that we'll start to focus on those here. So I'll just step aside, let the congressman talk, and then briefly take your questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Rob Whitman. First Congressional District.
First Congressional District of Virginia.
Or for America?
For, America's first district. There we go. Well, I want to say, first of all, how much of an honor it was for me to travel with such a distinguished delegation of senators. Senator Carper.
You were with us.
Yes, that's right. Well, it really was an honor. I'll tell you. What a great group. Senator Ensign, Senator Brown, great folks, great chemistry there with our trip, working to understand what's going on in the region. I think there was a great complement of questions. I also want to give some accolades to the staff. They did a wonderful job in putting this together, really making sure that we were able to access those decision makers that are critical in what's going on there in that region. And in addition, I want to point out what I came away with from the trip, and that was the really high level of morale from folks in the United States that are there, whether it's the folks on the civilian side, whether it's folks on the military side. When we had a chance to sit down and talk with them, whether it was at lunch, whether it was in a formal setting, what I found is that to a person, they were extraordinarily positive about what was going on over there, about their mission, and about what they've been able to accomplish. And I really took away from that a positive feeling about our efforts over there. And we asked some detailed questions about what they were doing, what they were able to accomplish, and how they felt the effort was going. And as I said, on the civilian side, when we talked to folks from up and down the variety of agencies involved in these provincial reconstruction teams, they were very, very positive about the things they were doing, whether it was on the governance side, on communications, on drug interdiction. They were all positive about how the pieces of this effort were coming together, both on our side and on the Afghanistan side. And when we spoke to our folks in Pakistan, who were helping many elements of the armed forces there get trained to make sure they were effective against the Taliban and that they were effective in mounting their offensive against the Taliban, I found a great sense of optimism there in their dealings with folks on the front lines there, the Frontier Scouts, who we had an opportunity to go and visit. The training facility, General Tariq Khan there was also very, very complimentary of our advisors that were there. So from top to bottom, what I found is both on the military side and the civilian side is people are committed, they are passionate about what they're doing, they're optimistic about the outcome of their efforts there, which is really, I think, something that made us all feel hopeful. And I think you heard the comments here collectively, is that we're hopeful about what's going on there. We're realistic in knowing that there are challenges there. As the offensive gears up in Kandahar, we know there are going to be challenges there, but we're hopeful in the way things have happened in Marja and the things that we've learned from that, and hopefully we can apply those as we continue to pursue this effort in the region. So, as I said, the one thing I took away from that is the high level of morale, the commitment, the passion, the dedication of all of the folks there from the United States in both the efforts in Afghanistan and Pakistan. And I think with that attitude and with that high morale that we stand the highest chance of success in both of those regions and combating extremism and terrorism. And I appreciate the opportunity again to join you on the trip.
All right. Questions? I would ask you we keep our questions to the trip, and let's just focus on Afghanistan and Pakistan and what we saw, what we learned. Please, yes, ma'am.
It seems like your trip took place at the same time that President Karzai was making very critical comments about the U.S. and the West, and I'd love to get your sense as to his reliability as an ally in this fight.
Yeah. We spent an hour with President Karzai. It was a couple of days after he had mentioned in one statement that raised the possibility, the specter of the U.S. being an occupying force, that the Allied nations being an occupying force. We made it very clear that we have no intention of being an occupying force, and said to him, you know that we're not. I explained to him in Dover Air Force Base, a big airlift base in my state, we also are the home of a mortuary. I said, President Karzai, for the last 8 years, 4,000 bodies have come through that mortuary. And families from all over the country have come to claim their sons and their daughters, their fathers and uncles. The American people have no intention of continuing to have this kind of sacrifice. We're here to help. We're here to help protect the people. We're here to help give you guys a chance. But we're going to have no interest in being occupied. I said, you know that, we know that, and just stop saying it. And the other thing that we suggested he do is, when he comes to the United States, he'll be here next month as a guest of the president. Spend that time speaking directly to the American people. Find an opportunity, live press conference, whatever, on a big show like 60 Minutes, to have an opportunity to speak directly to the American people, not filtered by the media. There's also the assertion that he said in one setting that he was a Taliban. And apparently that grew out of a conversation that he had with some of the members of his parliament. He said, I never said that, don't feel that way. And I said, I'm not really sure where that came from. But he's our partner. He's going to be the president. He's the person we have to work with. And we have to find a way to do that. John?
Just make one other clarifying comment. When we asked him about the comment about the Taliban, he said the Taliban killed his father. He hates the Taliban. There was no way he would join the Taliban. He was very, very specific about that, and he also made comments about that he considers America a great partner. And yes, they want to run their own country, but they know that they're not capable of doing it right now. So they want our help, they need our help, and then they want to take over their country as soon as they're capable of doing it.
Part of his frustration, and this was shared to Scott and Robin and all of us, part of his frustration is this. A lot of the world regards his election as president as something less than legitimate, understandably so. A number of people in his own country regard him as an American puppet. And those factors are weighing on him. And he feels the need to assert his independence, to show that he is not our puppet. When we have unfortunate incidents like we did the other day with people killed in a bus, that he be quick to basically say that's wrong. We can't tolerate this sort of thing. So he's trying. Those factors are weighing on him as well. Others, please. Yes, sir.
The president has said he'd like to start bringing U.S. troops home next summer. Did you develop any information or come away with any impression as to how realistic that's going to be and how long the United States is going to need to be there?
If you look at the surge in Iraq that began about a year and a half ago, within a year and a half, we knew that we were going to, if you will, win. The mission wasn't accomplished, but we're on the right track. We'll have a very good idea within a year and a half, I believe, that whether or not we're on the right track. I think we are on the right track today. The idea of actually setting a date in the future, not 10 years away, but within about a year and a half, the idea of actually setting a date sends a real strong message to the Afghans themselves, to the Army, to the police, to the folks who are running the government entities, the folks that are in charge of diversifying the economy. You don't have forever to get your act right, and I think that's actually helpful. We're not going to allow these efforts to just fill a vacuum that goes on for years and years and years. We're not a year and a half from now. We're not going to pull everybody out. We could begin a withdrawal, but I feel encouraged that a year and a half from now, the situation that today, which we describe as hopeful, will be far more so. I'm going to say, Scott, you want to?
Senator Brown, I was going to ask you just your thoughts on that, on setting a date.
Well, I was opposed to setting a date. I think it gives a the Taliban the opportunity to just kind of lay in wait. Yet on the other hand, I think that the Afghan people and the groups that Senator Copper referenced also need to know that there is a timeline and a certain period before we just say, you know what, it's just not working out. I think they get it, and they understand that we're very serious about trying to make this work. And I agree with the senator in going over General McChrystal's plan, that it is clearly the best chance for success by marrying up the police, the Army, the coalition forces, the American forces with the civilian population, and trying to not only obviously secure the area and then rebuild it is clearly the most important thing we can do, to have everybody working in concert with each other. Take, for example, you have a pomegranate farmer. You know, he loads his vehicle up, he toils over his crop, he loads it up in the truck, and he sends it off to market. Truck gets blown up. So the farmer's saying, gosh, you know, what do I have to do? How am I going to support my family? So then the Taliban will come and say, listen, plant the poppies, take care of you, no problem, we'll get you to market, we'll get you money. So there's a disincentive to do things legally, in my eyes, and be that pomegranate farmer. So what's happening now with General McChrystal and the tribal leaders, all the district governors and folks that are there, they're now securing the roads. So now that pomegranate farmer is able to, in fact, put that produce on the truck, get it to market, and get paid. So by securing the roads, which they're doing, and I think is the most important thing, securing the region so people can just live their lives and kind of get their footing back after years and years of war and turmoil, I think is so critical. And that's what the general's doing. And when they lose a civilian through what happened, for example, like the other day, they take it very, very seriously. General McChrystal's #1 goal is to make sure we have very few civilian casualties. So the whole approach to what's happening in Afghanistan, obviously Matt, everybody knows, is from my area. He covered my election very closely. I can assure you, based on the stuff that we did that we spoke about during the campaign, and what I learned there, it's all spot on. I asked General McChrystal every single thing I talked about during the campaign. I asked him exactly whether it was right or wrong. He says, you're spot on. This is our plan. This is what we're doing. And I, like them, the folks behind me, are very hopeful. The enthusiasm was there. The troops were focused. Coalition, A to Z, civilians, everyone is focused on making sure that we can stabilize Afghanistan and step back and let them do their job, which is governing.
Do you have a general sense on how long that?
I'm going to leave that to the military and civilian leaders. But, you know, I know that we want to certainly give our troops the tools and resources to finish the job, and I believe we're doing that. And then I want to make sure that they can come home safely and leave a secure Afghanistan, because I believe it is in our national interest to ensure that the bases are not reestablished and that terrorism is exported throughout the region and the world. Yes, sir.
You talk about giving the troops the things they need to do the job. They're going to have supplemental fairly soon. How big a battle royale is that going to be when you have folks, particularly, you know, that there are splits on the Democratic side, there are even some splits on the Republican side about how, you know, by putting money in, how long is this going to go on?
Well, bottom line is my first priority is to provide the tools and resources for our soldiers to be safe and come home safely and finish the job. And what I see as finishing the job, and what General McChrystal sees as finishing the job, and I don't want to speak for him, but based on the information we've received, is to ensure that we can get a secure Afghanistan, to allow them to be self-sufficient, allow them to tap their natural resources, which are about $3 trillion under the ground between oil and gas and minerals, so they can try to deal with the corruption issue, deal with the poppy issue, deal with the safety and security of their citizens, to make sure that they, in fact, do not have the Taliban move in again, reestablish bases, and then move on Pakistan. So there's going to be some financial cost to it. And the President has made that decision, and I support him in that regard. Sir, do you have a question?
No, go ahead. Let's let Rob get in here as well, okay?
Whatever, yeah.
Speaking of the supplemental, does any of you see a need after your trip for a specific legislative fix to address some of the problems that you may take up on your own?
I'm sorry, you say that again.
After your trip, did any of you find a specific legislative fix that needs to be addressed, maybe
As I said, I didn't see anything there specifically that needed a legislative fix. I think what we want to make sure is we're communicating about the job that's being done there, making sure that we properly resource the efforts there, and that's going to be critical to make sure we understand the scope of the things that need to happen there. That's why this trip was so important. I didn't see anything there specifically on the legislative side. The thing that will come up, obviously, is the supplemental appropriation. I think, though, that this trip will give us a lot of great information to bring to the floor when it comes time to debate that appropriation, to make sure people understand where that money's going, how critical it is in the operations there in Afghanistan, how critical it is for the success of the strategy that General McChrystal has put forward. And again, I think all of us agree that strategy, we believe, is the right strategy. We're seeing it play out in a very hopeful way. Again, many challenges ahead. So if we're properly resourcing that and things are going in the right direction, I think that good things will come out of that in the future.
One area that, and this is over in Pakistan as opposed to Afghanistan, that may require some legislative action. Pakistanis are interested in strengthening their economy. They're interested in creating jobs. They have an entity called opportunity zones. I think they call them opportunity zones. They'd like to create economic opportunity zones. They'd like to create up in if you will, the disputed areas along the Pakistani-Afghanistan border. And that's one that we need to debate and I think do something about.
It's a trade issue.
Yeah. But going back, I think our job as legislators is to be not skeptical and not critical, but probing with respect to what we're doing there, what our allies are doing there, what the Afghans are doing in terms of taking care of themselves. The other thing I think we need to do is be very faithful as we have a strategy as smart as the one that we do. We need to support that strategy. If there are things that we identify on missions like this, then we bring them to our colleagues and to others and fix those. But much of what I saw was very, very encouraging.
Just one other comment on that. If you read McChrystal's report last August, he said in the next 12 months, if things don't turn around, we can't be successful, to kind of sum up. And I think I think we're getting a better picture. And so right now, I don't think it's a time for that debate. We had that debate with Iraq, whether we're going to support or not. And I think right now, we need to have the confidence in our civilian and our military leaders over there, the plan that they put into place. We need to fund that. A year, 2 years from now or whatever, obviously we should be reevaluating the entire time. But right now, I think that we have to give the plan that worked in Iraq, we have to give that plan at least a chance to work in Afghanistan.
To follow up on Pakistan, the idea of the economic sense, do you think that's an idea that has widespread support in Congress?
Yeah, I think most of the members of Congress have not focused on it, and it's I'm told that there, at least on the Senate side, maybe some holes on legislation, and so what we need to do is to find out why those holes are there, what the strategy. I think the legislation in the Senate's been referred to the Finance Committee, as I understand, and I think there's a hole on the bill in the committee. We need to find out why that is the case. We will do that this week, and to see what the prospects are of moving legislation through the committee.
Can I just follow up on Pakistan a bit?
Please.
What was the sense that you got out of Pakistan in terms of a commitment to fight extremists? Is it consistent?
Well, when we left Pakistan 10 months ago, at that time the Pakistani military was going after the Taliban with a fair amount of success. And someone told me then that we would still see the same kind of determination and effort going on to chase down and chase out the Pakistani Taliban. I wouldn't have believed it. I'm really amazed that they've been able to sustain this effort for as long as they have and with the kind of success they have. We spent a really interesting part of a day, I guess our fourth day on the road, that in Pakistan up along the federally assisted tribal areas, FOD area. We were in about 100,000 person refugee camp. And a lot of people have been flushed out of their homes, but there's an effort underway to be able to take them back, and meanwhile to take very good care of them. But I was frankly pleasantly surprised, that the effort is ongoing, that it is successful on the military side. They stood up the refugee camps in order to take care of people, and they're literally redeploying and helping a couple million people get back home. Very impressive.
Make two comments on that. One is that it looks like they're learning from the mistakes that we made in Iraq initially, and what we've learned, and now what we're trying to implement in Afghanistan. The whole idea of clear hold, build, and transfer. They're trying to implement the same strategy. They seem even more committed than they were. You have to understand, this surprised me when we heard this. This is the longest military operation that country's ever had. And I mean, that surprised, I think, a lot of us, you know, that 11 months is the longest military operation that they've ever had. So they're very, very committed. You know, India is always something that is in the back of not in the back of their mind, very much in the forefront of their mind, but they have very much of a focus now on the Taliban because they see that as a direct threat to the governing of their country.
Others?
Could I just
Yes, sir.
follow up on that again? The Indians have been quite critical that some extremist groups in Pakistan haven't been the focus of as much attention by the Pakistanis. Was that a concern that you have, that perhaps some extremist groups that focus more on India rather than Pakistan haven't been under the scanner?
Do you want to take a shot at that?
Sure. You know, when we spoke with the leaders there to ask them about that total effort, they were committed across all levels of extremism there. So we got the sense from them that they realized that in order to make sure the long-term stability in their country is secured and then maintained, that they have to go after all forms of extremism. So we got a good sense that they understand those things. They understand the dynamic between Pakistan and India. We also had some additional conversations with them about other opportunities with India. We urged them to make sure that they sought better relations with India, especially along the lines of trade. We see an opportunity there. The trading relationship between Pakistan and India is 140th in the world, and we see a great opportunity there for better relations through trade. So we encourage them to develop those trading relationships there. We think those are the basis of establishing a much higher level of relationships when it comes to other issues. So we encourage them along those lines too, to do more with India to make sure that we reach out through them to engage India as a partner in the long term. And when they do that, I think they're better able to address these issues of extremist groups that may have a tendency to be more supportive of India, or in some instances on the Indian side more supportive of Pakistan. So I think they can build on that dynamic through building things like trade relationships.
Thanks, everybody.